My stepson accused me of abuse, so I showed everyone the videos of him planning the false accusation. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here we are. My life completely changed 3 months ago when my 16-year-old stepson decided to destroy everything I'd built with his mother over the past 4 years. What started as typical teenage rebellion turned into something so sinister that I'm still processing it all. It began on a Tuesday morning when I told him he couldn't go to some party because his grades were slipping. Nothing unusual there, we'd had this conversation dozens of times before. He stormed upstairs, slammed his door, and I figured that was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. The next few days were eerily quiet. He barely spoke to me, which honestly wasn't that different from his usual behavior. His mother and I had been together for 4 years, married for 2, and the kid had never fully warmed up to me. I understood divorce is hard on kids, and I wasn't trying to replace his father. I just wanted to be a positive influence in his life. But something felt different this time. He kept giving me these strange looks, like he was studying me or planning something. When I'd catch him staring, he'd quickly look away with this weird smirk on his face. It made my skin crawl, but I chalked it up to teenage attitude. Then came the Friday that changed everything. I was in my home office working when I heard him talking to someone on the phone. His voice was hushed, but our house has thin walls, and I could make out bits and pieces of the conversation. What I heard made my blood run cold. He was talking about bruises, about how to make them look real, about timing, about getting his story straight. I stood frozen in my doorway, unable to believe what I was hearing. My own stepson was planning to accuse me of abuse. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Part of me wanted to burst in there and confront him, but something told me to wait. To gather more information. To protect myself. Thank God I listened to that instinct. I spent the weekend in a complete daze. Every interaction with him felt loaded with hidden meaning. When his mother asked why I seemed so distant, I couldn't tell her. How do you explain that her son is plotting against you? She'd never believe it. Hell, I barely believed it myself. Monday morning brought the confirmation I was dreading. He came downstairs with what looked like a fresh bruise on his arm. Not a bad one, but noticeable enough. He made sure his mother saw it, wincing dramatically when she asked what happened. He mumbled something about falling off his bike, but the way he looked at me while saying it sent chills down my spine. I knew this was just the beginning. The practice round. And I was right. That evening, while his mother was at her book club, I made a decision that would later save my life. I set up a small camera in the living room. Nothing fancy, just a basic security device that I positioned to capture most of the main floor. I told myself it was just temporary, just until I could figure out what to do. The next few days were torture. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. Every conversation, every interaction, every moment alone with him felt like a potential trap. I started avoiding being alone with him altogether, which was hard to do without raising suspicion. Then came the night that nearly destroyed me. It was a Thursday and his mother was working late. I was in the kitchen making dinner when he came downstairs. He had this look in his eyes that I'd never seen before, calculating, cold, almost predatory. He started talking about school, about his friends, completely normal conversation. But there was something underneath it, something that made every nerve in my body scream danger. I kept the conversation light, tried to act normal, but I could feel the tension building. That's when he made his move. He suddenly grabbed a knife from the counter and pressed it against his own forearm. Not hard enough to cut, but enough to leave a mark. I watched in horror as he dragged it across his skin, creating an angry red line. Before I could react, he was running upstairs, screaming at the top of his lungs about how I'd hurt him. The sound was blood-curdling, the kind of scream that would have neighbors calling the police. I stood there paralyzed, knife still in my hand from making dinner, realizing how perfectly orchestrated this whole thing was. His mother came home 20 minutes later to find him sobbing in his room, showing her the mark on his arm. The look she gave me when she came back downstairs was one I'll never forget. It was a mixture of disbelief, horror, and something that looked almost like disgust. I tried to explain what had happened, but even to my own ears it sounded insane. A 16-year-old boy deliberately hurting himself to frame me. It was the kind of thing you'd see in a movie, not something that happened in real life. She didn't believe me, and honestly, I couldn't blame her. The next few hours were a blur of accusations, tears, and threats. She wanted to call the police. She wanted me out of the house. She wanted to know what kind of monster she'd married. I begged her to just give me 24 hours to prove my innocence, though I had no idea how I was going to do that. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the events in my head, trying to figure out how a kid could be so calculating, so manipulative. But then I remembered the cameras. The small security device I'd set up just days earlier. My heart raced as I realized it might have captured everything. I waited until everyone was asleep before retrieving the memory card. My hands were shaking as I loaded it onto my computer. The footage was grainy but clear enough. And there it was, the entire incident, captured in digital clarity. The video showed him entering the kitchen, looking around to make sure no one was watching, then deliberately picking up the knife and pressing it against his arm. It showed him practicing his scream, testing how loud he needed to be. It showed him waiting for the perfect moment to execute his plan. But that wasn't all. As I scrolled through the previous day's footage, I found something even more damning. Multiple videos of him practicing his story, rehearsing his reactions, even looking up tutorials online about how to create realistic-looking injuries. The most chilling part was a video from 2 days earlier where he was on the phone with someone, presumably the same person I'd overheard before. He was laughing about how easy it was going to be to get rid of me. How his mother would choose him over me without question. How he could finally have his mother to himself again. I spent the rest of the night watching these videos, my emotions cycling between rage, disbelief, and a strange kind of relief. I had proof. I had evidence that would clear my name and expose the truth about what kind of person my stepson really was. The next morning, I called everyone together in the living room. My wife, my stepson, and even his biological father, whom I'd asked to come over. I set up my laptop and told them they needed to see something important. The reaction was immediate and intense. My wife's face went white as she watched her son deliberately hurt himself. Her hands covered her mouth in shock as she heard him laughing about manipulating her. His father looked like he was going to be sick. But the most interesting reaction was from my stepson himself. When he realized what was happening, his entire demeanor changed. The victim act disappeared instantly, replaced by something cold and calculating. He didn't try to deny it or make excuses. Instead, he just stared at me with pure hatred in his eyes. What followed was one of the most uncomfortable conversations of my life. His mother was devastated, cycling between anger at him and guilt about not believing me. His father was speechless, clearly struggling to process that his son was capable of such manipulation. But the kid himself, he showed no remorse whatsoever. When confronted with his actions, he simply shrugged and said he'd do whatever it took to get me out of their lives. He felt I was taking his mother away from him, and he was willing to destroy my reputation, my marriage, and potentially my freedom to get what he wanted. The aftermath has been complicated, to put it mildly. His mother and I are still together, but the trust has been shaken. Not between us, but in our family dynamic. How do you move forward when you know your stepchild is capable of such calculated cruelty? We've had to make some difficult decisions. He's been sent to live with his father full-time, at least for now. His mother visits him regularly, but he's not allowed in our house unsupervised. The cameras are staying up permanently, which feels both necessary and incredibly sad. The legal implications were another concern. Although no formal charges were filed, I had to consult with an attorney about protecting myself. False accusations like this can have lasting consequences, even when they're proven false. I've had to document everything, just in case he tries something like this again. The emotional toll has been the hardest part. I've lost sleep, lost weight, and found myself constantly looking over my shoulder. The trust I had in my family, in my home being a safe space, has been shattered. Even though I've been vindicated, the experience has left scars that I'm still dealing with. His mother has been incredibly supportive, but I can see the guilt eating away at her. She blames herself for not seeing the signs, for not recognizing how far her son was willing to go. She's been torn between her love for him and her disgust at his actions. The most disturbing part is how calculated it all was. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a childish prank gone wrong. He planned this for weeks, maybe months. He researched techniques, practiced his story, and executed it with frightening precision. I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't installed that camera. Would anyone have believed me? Would I have lost my wife, my home, my reputation? Would I have ended up in jail? The thought keeps me awake at night. Friends and family have had mixed reactions to the story. Some are horrified and supportive. Others seem to think there must have been something I did to provoke such an extreme response. It's been eye-opening to see how people react when confronted with evidence that a child can be genuinely malicious. The relationship with his extended family has been strained as well. Some of his aunts and uncles have suggested that he needs help, not punishment. Others have cut contact entirely, unable to reconcile the boy they knew with the calculating teenager in those videos. What's perhaps most unsettling is how normal he seemed throughout most of this. He went to school, did his homework, interacted with friends all while planning to destroy my life. It's made me question everything I thought I knew about reading people and understanding motivations. The videos have become both a blessing and a curse. They cleared my name, but they also serve as a permanent reminder of how close I came to losing everything. I've watched them dozens of times, trying to understand the psychology behind his actions. His mother has struggled with whether to share the truth with his school, his friends' parents, or other family members. There's a part of her that wants to protect his reputation, but there's also a recognition that others need to be warned about what he's capable of. I've had to come to terms with the fact that I may never understand why he did this. Was it just jealousy? A desire for control? Something deeper and more troubling? The answers don't really matter now, but the questions still haunt me. The experience has changed how I interact with everyone, not just him. I find myself being more cautious, more aware of potential motivations behind people's actions. It's a level of suspicion that I never had before, and I'm not sure if it's healthy or necessary. Moving forward, we're taking things one day at a time. He's been attending sessions with a counselor, though I'm not sure how effective they can be when the patient shows no remorse. His mother hopes that with time and help, he might come to understand the gravity of what he did. I'm less optimistic. The coldness in his eyes when he was confronted, the complete lack of guilt or shame, suggests something deeper than typical teenage rebellion. It's a level of manipulation and calculation that I'm not sure can be easily addressed. The legal system wasn't much help in this situation. While what he did was morally reprehensible, it's not clear that any laws were actually broken. False accusations are serious, but when they're made by a minor against a step-parent, the legal remedies are limited. I've had to accept that there may never be real consequences for his actions. No punishment that fits the crime, no moment of recognition or apology. Just the knowledge that he was willing to destroy my life and felt no remorse about it. The community response has been mixed as well. Some neighbors and friends have been incredibly supportive, horrified by what happened and grateful that I had the foresight to protect myself. Others have been more skeptical, wondering if there's more to the story. I've learned that even with video evidence, some people will find ways to doubt or rationalize what they're seeing. It's human nature to want to believe that children are inherently good, that there must be some explanation or excuse for such behavior. The marriage has survived, but it's been tested in ways I never expected. We've had to rebuild trust, not in each other, but in our judgment and our family dynamics. It's been a long, difficult process that's still ongoing. Some days I feel angry about what he put us through. Other days I feel sad for him, wondering what led him to such a dark place. Most days I just feel grateful that I had the proof I needed to protect myself and my marriage. The cameras are still recording, capturing the mundane moments of our daily life. They're a constant reminder of what happened, but also a source of security. I never want to be that vulnerable again, that dependent on someone else's word against mine. Looking back, I can see small signs that I missed or dismissed. Moments of manipulation, testing boundaries, seeing how far he could push before facing consequences. But nothing that would have prepared me for something this calculated and cruel. The experience has made me more aware of the power dynamics in blended families. The biological bond between parent and child is incredibly strong, and step-parents often find themselves in vulnerable positions. I was lucky to have evidence on my side. I still wonder sometimes if I could have handled things differently. If there was a way to reach him, to address his concerns without triggering such an extreme response. But I've come to accept that some situations are beyond our control or understanding. The story has a strange ending because there's no real resolution. He's still out there, still capable of the same behavior. His mother still loves him despite everything, as mothers do. And I'm still trying to process how someone so young could be so calculating and cruel. We're not the same family we were before all this happened. We can't be. The innocence is gone, replaced by a wariness that colors every interaction. But we're still together, still trying to build something positive from the wreckage. The videos remain on my computer, backed up in multiple locations. They're my insurance policy, my proof that sometimes the truth is stranger and more disturbing than fiction. They're also a reminder of how quickly everything can change, how the people we think we know can surprise us in the most devastating ways. I never expected to be writing a story like this. I never expected to be the victim of such calculated manipulation. But here we are and somehow we're still standing. That has to count for something.